Wandering Winder continuing to look at my opening series in Dominion. And yeah, today I want to look at Student, which is the top card of the Wizards pile. Um, yeah, so it's a trasher and it can top deck itself, has to top deck itself if you trash a treasure, and it's a liaison, or as I like to call it, a favor gainer. So, you might think it's a good open, and that's what I want to investigate today. I'm actually not going to do the math today like I normally do in these. So let's say we open student silver. Okay, well now, as you can see, sometimes I'm going to have to choose between hitting 5 and trashing something. That's not too often. But let's say I really want to trash. Well, now, first of all, I'm anti-cycling. If I keep trashing coppers, most of the turns are going to be like this. In fact, I bottom decked 2 of my estates here, and those bottom 3 cards. So this is like better than average draws. If I keep trashing coppers, which you might think you want to do because, hey, that's why I got student, um, you can't afford much, right? You're going to hit 2 a lot, and you can't buy much on 2 on a lot of boards. So it can be a problem. You're going to hit 2 a lot. You're going to hit 2 a lot. What am I going to buy? Nothing. What am I going to buy? Nothing. Now, in this case, I could be buying Mode or Embargo or something. So that is something for sure. But in general, the point is it's going to get you to be a really long time before you're actually hitting 5 if you're always top decking the student and trashing a treasure, because it's really hard on a 3 card hand to make 5. You're going to need 2 silvers and a copper. And if you're trashing your coppers, it just ain't going to happen. So, if we go way back, let's say we do want to trash here, but turn 4, and drawing it with enough money anyway is pretty lucky. But let's say we trash estate. Well, now it's not on top of my deck. I haven't trashed as much. And now I can maybe hit 5 on a good draw, on a draw without the student in it. And that's okay. Um, but in general, right, if we were going to roll this a bunch of times, I'm not going to hit 5 that often, particularly if I'm trashing coppers. So mostly it's an estate gainer or an estate trasher early that sometimes you can trash a copper with and top deck it. But if you're top decking it, this is the big point I want to make about opening student. If you're top decking the student and trashing a copper frequently, it's going to be very hard to hit price points. So, when do you want to open student? There's a few cases still. One, I need trashing. If maybe it's the only trashing on the board, you can rotate the pile if your opponent doesn't go for it early. And, well, there, now I have access to some trashing and you don't. How good that is, it's a slow trash. It only trashes 1 card at a time. But it can trash more than 1 card per shuffle. Yeah, if you have a lot of overdraw eventually too, then you can trash a copper, redraw the student, play it again the same turn. So yeah, that's one case, is if it's the only trasher and trashing is good enough that despite its relative ineffectuality at being a trasher, you might go for it. Another case is if you would have just trashed an estate trasher, a single card trasher that trashes estates, maybe you still trash this, right? If you were going to pick up a goat herd, regardless of whether your opponent was going to, if you were going to be able to draw off your opponent just to trash estates, then maybe you go for that. Although this could be worse because the top decking itself can be a bad thing. But in most of the cases that you're just, if you're going to open trade route, you're probably going to open student. And this is non-terminal, so it's a bit better than that, right? Typically. So that's a case, but that's pretty thin. The other big cases are if there's a good 2 cost, so moat probably ain't it. But if there's, supplies or lackeys or some, spammable to cost, that does a lot in favor of student because you hit two a lot, trashing coppers with student. But if there's a good two, then that doesn't hurt so much. And then the last and probably biggest thing is if the ally that comes with is particularly good and particularly good reason that you would want favors, and particularly that you would want favors early. Now there's 23 of these things, and I am not going to go through them all, but suffice it to say, there are several allies where just getting a few favors is really valuable, and in that case, student does look quite a bit better. The main point that I want to make though is just that you're not going to hit 5 very frequently, opening student and trashing copper every turn. So you primarily want to view it, I think, in most cases, as an estate trasher that sometimes you're going to get trash coppers, or a way to gain favors if those are particularly valuable. Because the top decking thing, this is, even if it's a card you want in your deck, if you're like trying to draw that kind of thing, it's a card that you don't really want on top of your deck, right? Because it doesn't help your draw this turn. It doesn't help your this turn at all. You want to draw it at the end of the turn and not at the start of the turn, because it gets in the way at the start of the turn. I guess I should note, you might think a reason to get student is, so I can get the conjurers or the sorcerers or the liches because it helps me rotate. And that can come up, but I don't typically think it's a reason to get student. Particularly, I don't think it's a reason to open student. Maybe later in the game, your opponent has built a deck that cannot take advantage of or will get really hurt by these things, and you can take advantage and won't get hurt by them. Maybe in that case, it's good enough to pick up a student primarily to rotate the pile. But in most cases, if you rotate the pile, your opponent gets almost as much benefit as you because they can get access to the conjurers not quite as fast as you, or the sorcerers or what have you. And you've put in work to pick up the student and draw the student and play the student, and they haven't had to do that. Also note that the trash is mandatory, so if your plan is rotating, you're still going to have to trash something, so just keep that in mind. Anyway, that does it for the talk about student in the opening, and thanks for watching.